What's going on, gang, and welcome back to Scared of Normal. I'm Mike Murfitt, joined today by Matt Cordova and Cheyenne Murfitt, and today we're going to talk about the art of being scrappy. This episode was inspired by a conversation that Matt and I had the other day that we're going to dig into here in a little bit, but let's kick this thing off with the definition of what it is to be scrappy. So I'm going to let Cheyenne run with this one.
Yeah, this one, I'm glad that we're defining this because when this topic came up, I was not super sure what that meant.
Did you think it was like a derogatory thing? Like if somebody was like, dang, dude, you're scrappy, it's not good.
You want to wrestle?
No, I just couldn't wrap my mind around where we were going with this one. So let's set the stage. So by definition, being scrappy means being determined, adaptable, and resourceful. It's not enough to just have big goals and dreams. You must also have the drive and determination to see them through. Your success is determined by your ability to stay scrappy and push through obstacles, resistance, and competition. And to me, that definition made me think of the word grit.
Ooh, that
right?
is a good synonym.
I like that.
Yeah. So to me, I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. Being gritty in any pursuit that you're going towards means that you really are pushing through those obstacles. You're staying in the hustle, in the trenches, facing all of the challenges.
Well, when I was putting together the topics for this episode, one of the quotes I came across really spoke to me, and I think grit is a great word for that because the quote is, being scrappy will get you to the top, but staying scrappy will keep you there. Mm-hmm. And that's we've talked about this before in the past, but you see so many people accomplish the things that they want to do, and to do it, a lot of people do, they are very scrappy and they're very adamant and they show up a lot, but then you get to the top and you kind of lose that grit because you're comfortable. You lose that scrappy mentality because you're comfortable, and you maybe have better tools or a better network or whatever it is. You stop striving to grow, and that scrappiness disappears, and
you fall down.
Yep. Yeah, you can't maintain that.
Yeah.
So
keep that with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to really get into this one in true Scared of Normal fashion. We have a few topics to talk about in terms of being scrappy, and the first one is committing to a result. And I think that this is something that we're all probably super guilty of. Mm-hmm. Is saying oh, I want to do that, and then you do two things, and life gets in the way, and your other hobbies or interests or whatever it is come to the forefront, and you stop pursuing the thing that you've said that you were going to commit to. And I think that's a perfect thing to talk about right now, because so many people set resolutions at the end of the year. Yeah, the idea fairy. We were, it's funny. So me and Matt, actually, this was 2 weeks ago. We were hanging out with some of our friends that we did a recent coffee collaboration with, and they own a distillery here in Longmont, and we decided to or they invited us back into they have a private room, and they poured us a glass of this really tasty bourbon, and we started talking, and we got on the topic of when people say oh, I really wish I could do this, or this is my idea, but they don't follow it through with execution. And Mike over there was that's the idea fairy, man. They got a visit from the idea fairy. They were blessed with this idea, but they didn't understand how to follow it through with execution. So, if you have an idea, you've got to commit to it. Mm-hmm. And committing to that is, that's where I think the scrappiness starts, right? You start figuring out how you're going to realize an idea.
Yeah. And just showing up too. That's the hardest thing, is the first thing you do is you just got to be there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Trying.
Yeah.
And then the trying is going to make the scrappiness come out of you. It's it's the fight or flight situation. It's well, if I need to do this video project or photo project or whatever oil, whatever you're working on, it's I have this objective, and whatever I need to do to get there, I'm gonna get there.
Yeah, you're gonna get there by any means necessary, right? And that, talking about that idea fairy, it's it's we've talked about it too on these episodes before, but it's so easy to have an idea. Mm-hmm. In fact, we all have ideas. And how many times have you been talking to your friend and I have $1 million idea, or I had that $1 million idea? It's well, again, it's it's an idea. An idea is an idea until you bring the execution. And like you just said, showing up forces your hand into being scrappy and troubleshooting and figuring out how to okay, we're here. How do we get all the way over there to accomplish this goal?
Yeah.
And I think, scrappiness is a big piece of that, right?
It's the differentiating factor.
Yeah. And
true grit.
Yeah, true grit. And, committing to a result really does mean committing to a result at all costs and doing whatever it takes to get to that end result. And go ahead.
That also reminds me of like there's almost, to me, it's like, yeah, you can have an idea, but it's like, what's the end vision for it, you know? Like, and that, I guess, is what I'm like pulling from this topic that we're talking about right here, is like committing to the result. It's like, okay, but what does this idea look like in real life? Like, and being able to like have that vision for it, and being able to like really clearly like see what you want it to look like, what you want it to feel like, the kind of person you want to be as you're accomplishing it. Like, I feel like that is the thing that you commit to, versus like just having this like one grand idea.
Well, you do have to commit to like the execution. You have to like derive the path to get there. And like, you can't, you know, we've talked about this as well, but you can't like plan every step of the way. But like Matt said, showing up and being present, like that will help guide you a little bit. And, you know, I think a hard part of committing to a result is like, there is no reward for showing up every day, you know, and a lot of us think like, if I show up every single day, I should be rewarded tomorrow. If I show up today, I'll be rewarded tomorrow. And like, that couldn't be further from the truth. Like, it's very rare that you're going to do some work today and get a payoff tomorrow. Like, that just doesn't happen. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes people get lucky, but you have to show up to get lucky first and foremost, right?
The day you plant the seed is not the day you reap the harvest.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. That's exactly it. You know, I'm like, yeah, there's no rewards for checking off the menial boxes, but there is a reward for showing up and doing the work, you know, continuously, and having that grit and being scrappy along the way. So, yeah. The next little bit of a topic that I would like to talk about is how, you know, when this is something I'm guilty of, and this is why I'm excited to talk about this, but like, I've tried to shift my mindset over the last few years, but thinking like I can do better with more things or better tools, right? Like, we can all do better with more. I want to talk to the people, or I want to be around the people who can do more with less, right? And that's like a really hard thing to do, because most of us have the tools we need, but we're being told, or we're looking at other people via Instagram or somewhere on the internet, YouTube videos, and we see the tools they have or the networks they have, and we're like, oh, if I only had that, I could accomplish this. It's really hard to have the perspective that they didn't have that the whole way, right? They had to build that. And so like, yeah, putting yourself in the mindset of saying, okay, I can do more with less than what somebody has that's already successful, like knowing that that's possible, knowing that people have done that, and that's pretty much the only way to do it. Because if you're in the headspace of thinking like, okay, well, if I just had more, you're going to be stuck there, you know,
always wanting more.
Always wanting more.
Yeah, you're always trying to seek whatever is better.
In that mindset of like, oh, that must be nice. That must be nice. So
or just like stalling yourself in that spot, like in that mindset of like, I have to have that to be able to accomplish what I want. And really, you don't.
Yeah.
You can do so much with so little. And the resources that we have like at our fingertips these days is like ridiculous compared to what people
even
had.
Having the most like entry level, like simple tools. Like, we all have a smartphone in our pockets.
I was just gonna say that we all have an iPhone or some sort of smartphone. We have a
supercomputer in our freaking pockets. Like, think about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, they had Palm Pilots 20 years ago. You guys remember the freaking Palm Pilot?
I loved my dad's Palm
Pilots. Yeah, Palm Pilots were sick. But like that, it couldn't do anything. It was like a digital freaking notepad. Like, we can literally, every piece of information is at our fingertips. We have a camera that is better than cameras were. They're better than most point and shoot camera. You know, it's
they're better than professional cameras nowadays, dude.
There's people that are filming full cinemas on a freaking iPhone. So like, think about that. Like, when you think about, I don't have the right tools for the job, like, generally speaking, you are the limiting factor in most scenarios. The tools that you have, the budget that you have, those are not limiting factors. You can make it happen. Yeah. And a great example that just popped into my head is the founder of Liquid Death. He just did a thing on CNBC. And in that episode, he talked about when they launched Liquid Death, they didn't even have a product. Like, they made a fake can. That's and they crazy. Spent like less than $5,000 filming a video and then on ad spend. And like, before they even had a product, like a tangible, holdable product, they had people from like 7-Eleven and big retail chains calling them and being like, hey, we want your product. And it's like that's being scrappy right there. Like they were like, okay, we're going to like create this really cool brand. And instead of investing all the money, like the must be nice piece, like, oh, I wish I could buy all that product to sell. No, they made something fake. And then they took that proof of concept to people and got investment and they went after it, right?
So cool.
It's so cool. And like they did $100,000 in sales in their first month. And I think he said if I remember right from the video, I think he said they spent like $2,500 on ad spend.
Whoa.
Dang.
But they just like, they worked their ass off on creating and thinking outside of the box and being scrappy and like.
They used what they had in front of them.
They used what they had and they didn't even have a freaking product. They had a fake can.
That's crazy.
Like that is like the quintessential like look into what being scrappy is, right?
This also is reminding me of, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he's the Lyrical Lemonade guy.
Oh yeah, Cole Bennett.
Cole Bennett. Oh my gosh. He does such a good job of like showcasing, like, I mean, he's an incredible producer and I don't even totally know all that he does, but he creates these incredible music videos. But every now and then he does these ones that are just shot on iPhones.
Yeah.
And it is really cool to see the process of like him. He has all of these resources now that he can, tap into and make these incredible projects. But like his grittiness and his scrappiness like comes out in these other projects where he's like, no, actually, let me just like shoot this with an iPhone.
Well, and that's like what he talks about in those, right? Is he's like, I'm doing this to show kids that it's possible to do it without the red camera. That's, $100,000 rig and all this like crazy production. He has like literally a gimbal and an iPhone. Like literally everybody has that. And if you don't have it, like you can buy a gimbal for $150, and like he's making music videos that are top tier. Yeah. And it's like I think that's another great example. It's like, it's so cool to see like somebody that is practicing at the highest level, like he's talked about in interviews that he's had offers for $50 million for his production company. Whoa. And this dude is out there in the streets filming with an iPhone and like he documents the whole process because to inspire people to show. And I have a lot of respect for that too, because he's not like, holding all this like or safeguarding like, oh, look how good I am. He's showing people that it can be done at a scrappy, like low barrier to entry level.
Rich form too. He does a lot of stuff on iPhones.
That's
like
sick.
You would never even know.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's just
all the B-roll stuff. I think he shoots a lot on his iPhone.
That's insane.
Just like out in the city,
Well, and I think, even talking about just like, since we're on the topic of like filming stuff, like I think about it for this podcast too. Like we have 2 GoPros sitting over here, and like these are GoPros that I got, I don't know, 6.5, almost 7 years ago from a friend that used to work for GoPro. We were doing a trip for Hotbox when I was working there, and like she gave me these GoPros, and like when we were starting this podcast, I was like, okay, we need to buy cameras. And I'm looking and it's like a couple $1,000s to buy the cameras. And my mindset was like, I'm looking at all these podcasts that are well established and they're big. I'm like, I want to look like that.
Yeah.
Little do I, know that I can do it with the tools that I already have. You know what I mean? And like the options are there. Yeah. Being scrappy is so freaking important. And I do want to get into where the theme of this episode came from.
We were wrestling.
we were fighting each other. We actually almost were.
Yeah.
So a couple of nights ago, I was finishing up cutting like an Instagram reel together of a recent podcast. And I really wanted to find a song that would like fit the reel. And I couldn't do it. And I had worked on it for like 5 hours, like listening to just an insane amount of music. And then Matt came over and like we went and jumped in the hot tub because I was like, I need to like shut my brain off for a second. I can't listen to any more music. And we talked about it for a little bit. And then we came back inside and started trying to work on this. And Matt's sitting down helping me. And I'm like kind of explaining what I wanted. And I downloaded a song from YouTube. And what Matt tells me was just like the most profound thing. And I'll let you explain it.
So I asked him, I said, why don't you just screen record it? And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, just record it on your phone or your computer and put it in Premiere and separate the audio and you're there. Like, you're fine. And he's like, I never really thought about doing that, And it's like, I don't know. I've done that with so many videos. Like, whenever, I don't know, like I just was too lazy to either buy it or just I don't know. It's just easy, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
But that's where this idea came from, you know? It's like
You're being scrappy.
Scrap. Oh, dude, I love it.
well, and because like if you've ever downloaded anything off YouTube, like you have to run it through a converter, and all these converters are just the most sketchiest platforms, dude. Like every time you download something, you're like, I'm downloading a virus.
downloading
for
a
sure.
virus.
I'm breaking
Like,
my computer right
yeah,
now.
and it's always so sketchy. So when he was like, "Oh yeah, like you can just screen record it," I was like, "Dude, that is the scrappiest shit I've heard in a long time."
Well, I was using a converter and the website went away because it
Yeah.
was sketchy, and I was like, well, shoot, what am I gonna do now? I'm like in need of I'm making a video right now. I need a song, and I was like, well, dang it. Well, I guess I can try and screen record. I was like, this is not gonna work. Audio is gonna get flagged, nothing. And I was like, whoa, all right, cool. Well,
You
I guess I'll just
adapted.
do that for now on.
Well, it's like, and again, that is the quintessential definition of being scrappy.
Yeah.
Like being able to like, okay, you're solving a problem with the tools that you have, and that's exactly what it is, right? Like you're troubleshooting and saying like, how can I solve this freaking issue?
Yeah.
And again, you have the tool in your hand. And most people, I don't think, would look at it that way. And that's like, for me, I was like, wow, that is the way to solve problems, you know? It's like you have the tool in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking, me and Cheyenne this morning, we're talking about it. And she's like, I don't think I really have much to relate to this episode in terms of being scrappy. And so we were talking about it. And, you know, she's built a business that has done well over $1 million in sales now, all from an iPhone.
Yeah, so crazy.
Isn't that crazy
That's
to think?
so
That's
sick.
what I was like pointing out to her. I was like, that's like, you know, again, most people step back and look at like, how do I build a business that's going to do $1 million in revenue?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you think, like when you really think about that, you think you need like all kinds of crazy infrastructure and, you know, nice cameras if you're going to create content, all these things. And like, I think you've used a real camera like a handful of times.
I don't know how to use a real camera,
Yeah.
guys. It's on my list of skills to learn, but yeah,
That's awesome.
me and my iPhone, we've been through it together.
Yeah. Which is great. You know, again, like there's so many people out there that will lead you to believe that you need all of these things that are, you know, make you believe it's done at a higher level that way. But it's like in reality, like you can do it with a thing in your pocket.
Yeah.
Well, I even think about like when we first started Traction and we would do like the website banners and we would do them like seasonally. And Michael and I would run over to like the art and craft store. We'd get some different poster board. We'd get some like little, I don't even know.
Go
like,
to the dollar store and get like some like Valentine's
yeah,
stuff.
just like
or,
little hearts or whatever for whatever theme it was. And like we'd shut off all of the lights in our apartment.
draw
We would
the
like
shades.
go into the kitchen floor, you guys. We'd lay this like poster board out and we would just like shoot photos. And that was like the way that we started doing our banners for our website with Traction.
We need to get back to that. 'Cause
We
that was
should
so
try that
fun.
again. But now they're like, you've got beautiful like videos and, you know, different
Well, we
things.
didn't even
but
like
it's like,
have like a roastery space at that time really
Yeah.
to do it. Like that's like we have a beautiful space now to do it in. Like we have plenty of space, but at that point in time we were still up in Lyons in our friend's shop and like, dude, it like we couldn't do it there. There was no
Yeah.
freaking way we could have done it
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Like there was like saws everywhere, you know, like it just wasn't like the space to do it. And so yeah, we had to like make do, and you know, our whole living room was torn apart with studio setup, the most janky studio setup you've ever
I've definitely
seen.
set up some janky studios
Yeah.
in my days, dude. Wow.
Well, and like even talking about like, you know, the original roastery, like I think we've talked about this briefly on an episode, but when we first launched Traction, Joey Schuessler came up to shoot like a video for us, which was super cool. But we were like, dude, what are we gonna do? Because it was just like studs on the wall. Like it just didn't look good. And like we had this like very particular vision for what we want the brand to be portrayed as, especially on a launch video, right? And like Joey's coming and he's a world-renowned cinematographer. So we're like, we can't miss this opportunity. We also didn't have money to like get OSB or drywall and like paint the wall black and like make it look nice. So we're like sitting there banging our head against the wall. How do we fix this problem? And we stopped into like Joann Fabrics and got like a big sheet of black like canvas and just hung it up. So like the roastery was on black and it looked cool. And like now when you walk out into our roastery, like all the walls are painted black and it's exactly what we wanted it to be. But it took us, you know, almost 3 years to accomplish that from launch.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to be scrappy. We had to put up a canvas sheet.
You got to do what you got to do.
People would come up after seeing that video and like look around the room and be like, I didn't know this is where you guys were roasting. Yeah.
About that.
Looks a little different on
Disregard the
film.
data, man. Don't look at it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the next topic, right? Like disregard the data because, sometimes, and I think in a lot of cases, data will lead us in the right direction. But a lot of times we can be paralyzed by overanalyzing data.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is such a detrimental thing, especially when you're small. Because when you're analyzing data, it takes a long time. Being able to like approach, your target market or your target audience or who you think that is. If you're not good at analyzing the data and you're looking at that data, you're going to be thrown off. And the example that I have here is from a massive company.
I love this example.
This example, like the first time I heard this story, it blew my mind.
This relates to me.
Yeah. So Stanley, the drinking, they have like a bunch of food product or like containers, drink cups.
Yeah.
You've probably seen them before. I believe they actually invented the vacuum insulated stainless steel cup way back. Like they had the patent.
The thermos. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that it was them. But they came out with like a hydro flask type cup a few years ago, kind of before anybody did. And it flopped.
Yeah.
And they were trying to market it to like construction workers and like who they thought their demographic was, the people that used the thermos back in the day, right? Like they thought this is the perfect crowd. This is a massive company, probably $1 billion brand. And they were looking at the data and they almost went belly up over the fact that they were trying to push this product. This product almost didn't succeed. And then out of nowhere, somebody that was completely opposite of what they thought their target market was picked up the product, posted it on Instagram, and it has almost been out of stock ever since. Like every time they restock it, it sells out instantly. Whoa. Because, all these women that like were completely opposite of what they thought they needed to sell this product to picked up the product. It was, they didn't even have anything to do with it. Now they're leaning into it, I would assume.
Yeah, they totally are. Now it's like all of the fun colors and hip trendy things and this is definitely one that I'm guilty. I've purchased a couple of them.
Yeah. So like,
But they're out of stock all of the time. And it was like, they totally just had to tap into this completely different market that wasn't even on their radar, but that made their product super successful. So sometimes you gotta veer off from what you think is your target audience to
when I think, when it comes to disregarding the data, like we live in a time now where there's an influx of data. Like there's infinite data points that you can find on people that you think you want to sell to, right? That didn't used to exist. So now, like, to be scrappy, like you're going to be overanalyzing and you're going to try and perfect what you think that audience is. And more than likely, you're going to make it too niche and you're just going to miss it entirely. Mm-hmm. So maybe pick a small piece of that data and then just move quickly, because being able to move quickly and find out what doesn't work is much better than trying to aim for perfection and like just missing the mark entirely. Say you put a week into like creating this target audience and create all this advertising and campaigns and da-da-da-da-da. Well, if you followed the data to a T and created this niche thing that wasn't even who you were looking towards, you just wasted a week. Mm-hmm. As opposed to kind of just shooting at the wall and hoping it sticks. And, there's some beauty in that. That's where being scrappy works really well.
Controlled chaos kind of,
Yeah. Well, and like, that's the beauty of being a small business. Mm-hmm. Like big companies have to look at the data. They have to let the data drive them. That's how they operate. And it's much more difficult to turn a big company quickly. That's where small companies or small business has such an opportunity, is they can like pivot at a moment's notice. Mm-hmm. They can change who they're talking to or whatever it is to adapt to the market. So very cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, I feel like this next point about going down a one-way street, I feel like it kind of correlates. Like we've said, I build a business primarily online. So like you said, there's so much data. You can literally open up your Instagram app and you can see numbers, you can see graphs, you can see all kinds of stuff about like what people are liking, what people are viewing, what people are engaging with. And sometimes like that can be paralyzing because it's like, okay, maybe I posted this one thing and it wasn't the thing that everybody liked, but it's something that I like.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. It's like you got to hold both hand in hand, because this like going down one-way street, to me, it's like staying in your own lane, right? It's like the things that you like, the things that you're like, you know what, this is where I'm headed, and this is what I want to speak out into the world. And sometimes you do have to stick with it for a while, right? Like to be able to see the growth of that one thing. Sometimes it isn't just like this instant, like, okay, here's my numbers, it's growing, I'm going for this. And you have to be dedicated to like what it is that you are trying to build there.
Yep. Well, I think the beauty of a one-way street is that it allows you to be polarizing, and not in a negative way, but like if you're aiming to please everybody, you will please no one.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's another really difficult thing for all of us to kind of wrap our heads around, is like we think if everybody likes what we're doing, we will sell products, or people will follow us on the internet and we'll be able to sell our course or whatever we're doing. And it's hard for us to remember that, like, well, again, if you're trying to please everybody, like, there's such a small group of people in that mix that will actually resonate with what you're doing, as opposed to if you go against the grain and like you truly do what you believe in, because it's not going to be what everybody else believes in. And you just have to be okay with that, you know? And like, again, like just go back to the Liquid Death conversation. Like, they are a $750 million company because they went against the grain. And they like basically were just like, fuck it, dude. We're going to come into this industry and we're going to make noise and we're going to do it the way we think is cool.
Yeah, they like stay true to themselves and like what they wanted it.
Everybody else has come in and they've just done water exactly like the next guy's done water. Like
pretty colors.
Yeah,
And,
this is super healthy for you. And like, see this Fiji water? Put your pinky out when you drink it. You see this waterfall is where it came from. Everybody does that. Well, Liquid Death came in and they put a freaking skull on there, and like their copywriting is great. And like, it's different.
Yeah.
You know, they went down a one-way street. They're polarizing. They had fun with it, you know, and again, they were scrappy through that whole process. They're still being scrappy. And it's sick to see that as a company that's, you know, next year will be most likely $1 billion brand in 3 years. That's bizarre. So yeah,
wild.
Go down a one-way street, be a polarizing, you know, believe in what you believe in. And,
and believe in like what you're doing.
Yeah. And the right people will come around.
Yeah. You'll attract the right people.
Yeah. And I think that goes for everything, whether it's business or if you're trying to be an athlete and you're looking for sponsors or whatever it is. Like, yeah.
I mean, that just goes down all the way to life. Like, that's how you're going to attract
friends.
Attract the people you want to be
partners,
around. Yeah, exactly.
That's huge.
That reminds me of like I like affirmations, and one of the affirmations that I've been leaning towards right now is like, whatever's meant for me is going to find me, right? And so the same kind of connection there of like, I am going to be who I am and I'm going to share that, and whoever is meant to be in my world, whatever opportunities are meant to find me, will find me.
Yeah, and but you only find, or they only find you by you being the truest version of yourself and you traveling down that one-way street. So,
which can be hard.
Yeah,
that's like you said, it's like a whole life thing. It's like you got to be really strong in your belief in yourself.
Yeah, it comes back to, you know, again, another thing we've talked about a bunch is intentionality, and you have to choose that every single day, because we, you know, societally have been beaten into this mold of like, hey, we're going to make this easy for you if you just follow these steps. So going against that, again, is very difficult, but it's rewarding. Just like we talked about earlier, you know, if you show up for what you want to do every day, it's going to reward you. And it might not be today, but it will happen. So the next big thing is negotiating everything. And this is one I think that's very difficult for a lot of people. And the cool thing about life is everything is negotiable, right? And so, like, for example, for us here at Traction, like when I talk about negotiable, it's like when we're buying a green coffee or shipping rates, shipping green coffee to here, rent for a warehouse. Like, there's so many things in your life that are negotiable, just about everything. And the hardest part is going to the people that are providing the service or whatever it is and saying like, hey, can we approach this a little bit differently?
Yeah.
And there's a conversation that's on a podcast. It's a Gary Vee podcast, and it's an entrepreneur. His name's Tim Ferriss. And in that podcast, he talks about everywhere you go, ask for a 10% discount. And it's not forgetting the 10% discount. It's because you want to be practicing doing hard things or having hard conversations. Like, how uncomfortable is it to walk into your favorite bagel shop and be like, they make your bagel.
Shout out Moe's
Shout out to Moe's Bagels. Yeah. They make you your bagel, everything. You get up to the register and you're like, actually, can I get 10% off? You don't have to tell them why. You don't have to tell them anything. See what they do. And Tim Ferriss in the episode talks about how more likely than not you get the 10% discount. And what that does is it translates to so many other areas in life. So whether you're negotiating a deal with a sponsor or a landlord or a shipping provider or whatever it is, you'll be able to go into it and not necessarily be abrasive, but you're not going to be scared to say what you feel and ask for the hard things. And that comes back to, you know, being scrappy to get to where you want to go. Because again, like a lot of times you'll get to where you want to go and then you say like you stop trying to be scrappy. Well, now you're probably overspending on things. You're not being as aware as you should be. You're overbuying things. And so being a little bit more aware and like asking hard things, and that can be as simple as asking for a 10% discount.
True. That's hard. I would struggle with that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to start trying actually.
Yeah.
You gotta ask for what you want. We had this same conversation around a table in Austin, Texas with some of our friends drinking coffee. And we brought this podcast up and we left that entire trip, actually, we left it being like, okay, like what we learned from this trip was we got to ask for what we want. And it's hard to ask for what you want, even if it's just like this, like you said, it's not actually about the 10%. It's just about getting comfortable with the uncomfortable and asking for the things that you desire. And if you don't ask, you don't know. And if you don't ask, you'll never know.
Well, and if you don't ask confidently. And that's where the asking for a 10% discount is so important. Like the more confident you get with asking, like, the way Tim Ferriss explains it is really well. He's like, you know, if the barista at your favorite coffee shop is not going to stand there and argue with you or ask you why. They just want to serve the next customer. So they're going to give you the 10% discount, especially if you're super confident with the way you're asking.
Yeah.
You know, and that then translates into other aspects of your life. You going to buy a new car? Well, then you can negotiate there and you can be confident in that negotiation, because most people who are asking for a deal aren't going to be confident because they aren't practicing those things. They're not being scrappy in their day to day. You know, we're never going to be good at the things that we don't practice. So ask for a 10% discount where you go next. Yeah.
That's a tough challenge there.
I'm going to do that tonight.
Do it.
I'm going to go to the airport and be like, can I get 10% off my flight? Thanks.
Just go up to the counter.
Good luck with that one. It might work. You never know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Be like, the gate's dirty. Do you give me 10%? I don't know. Don't do that. Don't lie. Don't lie.
Don't lie. But we can ask for favors.
Yeah. And that, I think, is a huge thing, right? And I kind of joke around about this a lot. And it's not necessarily a joke, but I feel like, you know, in the last like decade of my life, nearly everybody I've asked a favor from, I have never been told no. And I think that's a really cool feeling, because it is going back to that, like asking hard things confidently. If you ask for a favor and you have laid the groundwork, people are going to be more inept to help you out, you know? And I think especially when it comes to, you know, building a network of really great people around you that you can trust and that trust you, those people, if you are showing up every day and you are being scrappy and you have the grit and they see you putting in the hours, especially if those people are successful or they have done that themselves, they're going to opt into helping you more because they know where you're at in that struggle. You know, that's huge. And so it goes back to like building that network. And again, what Cheyenne just said about the affirmations, like if you be yourself and you do what you do and like you truly believe in what you're doing and you show up, like Matt said earlier, you will build that network of people that you can ask favors from.
The right people will find you.
Yeah.
And you don't
huge.
know, like if you're not asking, you're not going to, who knows?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you like asked somebody for something and like they probably wanted to do that, but they didn't? Like maybe somebody wants to help you with something, but unless you ask, maybe they think that you don't want help. You know, it's like that's a crazy thing.
And that's a hard one. Yeah.
And I've found myself in that situation before where people are like, I thought you weren't going to ask, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I think I think we all fall victim to thinking like, I can do it myself. Yeah, maybe you can do it yourself, but how much more impactful can you be if you ask somebody who's already done it, or somebody who does it differently, or whatever it may be? Hey man, like I'm super busy doing this today. Can you come help me? You know, that makes a huge impact.
Yeah.
I think it also like works in favor of building that network, because it's like you're lifting other people up in that same way too, because it's like you're leaning on people, letting them know that like you're vulnerable in that relationship, and like I would like your help.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a vulnerable, hard thing to do and say and ask. I know for myself, like I have a hard time because I'm like, I don't want to be a burden to somebody, but at the same time, it's like, no, that's how you build deeper relationships. If you're not asking for that help with somebody, like you're not going to have that deeper connection. And like, and then what comes of that? Like, then you're like together and you're having like, you know, this experience together, and you're maybe having a hard conversation together or like whatever. But
well, every time I ask somebody for a favor, I always try and return something of value, whether it's a gift or a service or whatever I can do, an introduction. Like you try and make it as synonymous as possible, you know? And I think that comes back down to that scrappiness. Like if you're just asking and you're never giving, that's generally going to be a pretty short-lived thing. People are going to be less inept to say, oh yeah, I'll for sure do that for you. And I think about that a lot. Like I always am asking for introductions, because like obviously I could do the work and I could get to know somebody, right? But I know that maybe getting to know the person that I think would help, you know, launch our business into the next level, maybe that's going to take me a year. But my friend that I hang out with every day, he hangs out with that guy every day. So I can just ask my friend like, hey, can you introduce me to that guy? Easy enough. It's done. And now we're friends. And it took me 10 minutes as opposed to a year to lay that groundwork, right? And there's a lot of beauty in that. Again, it's that scrappiness, that willingness to go out of the box and say, okay, like how can I do this as quickly as possible and as well as possible?
Yeah, scratching each other's backs, man.
Yeah.
It's cool. I think if you're able to ask someone for help, then that will open up the door for them, if they need help, to ask you. And it's back to what you just said too. It's like, then you're just building such a cool foundation of friendships and networks, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
cool.
It really is.
I love helping people. That's the
I know,
best
it's
thing.
so much fun, dude. I always love like when people do text and they're like asking to like meet somebody or like whatever it is, because I'm like, I feel fortunate to have the network. So like being able to like, and especially if it's somebody that's like kicking ass, it's like, fuck yeah, dude. Like I want you to like continue to grow. Like that's sick, you know?
We rise by lifting others, you know?
Rising
like,
tides lifts all ships.
Yep.
The next big thing that I think is really exciting and really prominent in terms of being scrappy is just working more. You know, that's the hardest part, I think, about all of this. And like, especially in the age right now where people are talking about like how bad it is to hustle and like, you know, put in all the long hours and how you can do less with more. It's like, what in life have you ever truly experienced where you have done less with more in terms of like accomplishing a big goal? Like putting in the hours truly will, you know, propel you going forward, especially if those are intentionally focused hours, especially if you are approaching it with that scrappy, gritty mindset. It will propel you forward. So yeah, like especially, you know, if you have a goal and you like, instead of working on it for 5 hours a day, you put in 10 hours. Like that's gonna literally get you there so much faster.
Or even 6, just like those little baby steps, you know, the small stones make big rocks.
I think about like in my own journey with where I'm at now, like I started my business while I was a full-time teacher. So like I would work all day in the classroom. I'd come home and I would like put in a solid like 3 or 4 hours at night every night. And it was a rough season of like, okay, I'm like in this and I'm working really hard for this, but it's paid off to the place where I'm at now where like I get to do my business full time. And so sometimes it can be like seasons of it too, right? Like sometimes there's a season where you have to really dive in and you have to really commit to it, especially at the beginning of anything, right? Like you can't start something and expect for it to like work with just a little bit of time or a little bit of effort. 9 times out of 10, I was listening to this podcast the other day and they were talking about like, if you anytime you like go for a goal, like you kind of in your brain, you're like, okay, it's going to take me a certain amount of time. It's going to take me a certain amount of effort to like reach this, right? But almost always it's going to take you more time and more effort to achieve that goal or achieve that dream than you thought. So if you're like at the beginning and you're starting and you're like, okay, if I know it's going to take me more time and more effort than I think it is, am I still committed to this? And so, yeah, that's kind of like where I'm connecting with that one.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's again, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of this episode, but like very rarely, almost never do you get an instant payback on the investment that you've put in. And like whether that's in the stock market, like that doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist in day-to-day life either. Like it's very rare that you're going to put in 8 hours today and accomplish your goal tomorrow. Like nobody like goes to the gym one time and then just wakes up with 6-pack abs, you know, like that's
damn, I wish.
We wish that was the case. You know, we all wish that was. And that's, I think, why so often we set out on these goals is because we're marketed to by a lot of companies that say like, if you buy this new computer, you'll be able to create all this stuff. Okay, you sit down. I actually saw an ad for Adobe the other day, and it was like a Photoshop ad for your phone. And I saw a bunch of people complaining about how hard it was to use. And it's like the ad was showing like how easy it was to like remove backgrounds and stuff like that. And like people are like, this is like not you know, the user experience is so bad. It's not user intuitive, da 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 da. And it's like, dude, this is a professional product.
Yeah.
Like what, you know, but it's like the way it's marketed makes people feel like, oh, I can just push like enter and it's going to remove the background and it's going to be, it's an easy button, you know? And it's like, that's a really hard mindset to get out of, you know? It's like the practice for a year so you can win a game in 2 or, you know, 3 years, you know, practice for 3 years so you can win one game or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah.
It's a hard thing. And that leads us in kind of to the last little topic of this episode is having a sense of urgency, you know? And one of the things that I was reading that like really spoke to me about urgency was if somebody told you that there was a golden ticket hidden somewhere in your house, and if you found it in the next hour, they would give you $1 million. How hard would you look for it? Probably pretty hard. Now, if that same person told you if you didn't find it in the next hour that you were going to lose your job and your house and the things that were most dear to you, what kind of urgency would you have finding it? So then taking that same kind of urgency and applying that to your goals and saying like, I'm going to, at no matter the cost, make this happen. And I think that that's a good thing to consider before you embark on a new goal, right? How hard am I going to work on this? And how long am I going to work on this? And at what costs? And if you can't answer those things, is it something that you actually want to embark on? Or are you going to put a couple months into it and it's going to fizzle out? And then those couple months turn into wasted time. You know what I mean? So urgency is such a massive thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's definitely like something that separates people. Like, do you have the urgency in that goal or do you not have the urgency in that goal? Because that's almost one of the things I feel like that's going to propel you forward in pursuit of what it is that you're going for.
Yeah. Well, and like putting something off until tomorrow doesn't hurt anybody but you, especially when it comes to a goal, right? Like you're the only person that is going to be affected by that.
Yeah.
Unless you have employees, then they're going to be affected by that too, right? So like, you know, discipline is what's going to drive your passions forward, and like showing up and doing the work is going to benefit you. And again, it's not going to be tomorrow.
That actually like reminds me of an experience I just had, and it was like a profound moment for me because it related to a lot of things that I do in business, but it's like the things that you put off the most are usually like the things that are going to take the least amount of time. I've been putting off going to get an emissions test and get my car registered for so long. And it finally is at the point this last week where I was like, okay, I have to do this because I'm about to go out of town. And if I don't, it's like I'm going to have late fees and it's going to be way harder, right? It took me an hour
You spent more time putting it off than
I
it actually
spent
took you.
so much more time avoiding it and like sitting in the I don't want to do it versus like just doing the dang thing. And then I accomplished it and it was done,
Yeah.
right? So like same thing with anything in business. It's like the things that we push off the most are the things that are going to be the things that propel us towards that goal the most.
Yeah. Well, and I think, if you make something a goal or it's a priority or, a priority for you, if you don't put it at the top of your list until it's completed, like it's never going to get completed.
Mm-hmm.
It's always going to get put off. And like the thing for me, like I use reminders in my phone like all the time. And if I ignore it once or twice, I'm fucked because then it will be there 3 weeks later. And I'm like, oh shit, like I never completed that thing.
Yeah.
So I've tried to be a lot more conscious as I've noticed that about myself, that if my phone dings with a reminder, I decided that at 5 p.m. today that I needed to get that done whenever I decided that. And so I'm going to stop doing whatever I'm doing. I'm going to accomplish that goal. And then I'm going to get back to what I'm doing because it was a priority for me when I put it in my phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so really freaking making stuff a priority and like actually making it a priority. Don't set something to a top priority and not do it.
Yeah. Or like this is something that I'm getting better at, but that I've definitely struggled with in the past is like just making a to-do list just to make a to-do list. And then you're like, oh, I accomplished something because I made my list of things that I'm going to do, but then I didn't do any of them because I spent my time doing the list. And then tomorrow when I look at that list, I'm going to redo that list because like
half of it maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard.
So yeah, it's hard, but it's definitely like one of those things that you gotta grow through. You gotta figure out how to have that sense of urgency if you're gonna get something accomplished.
Well, I think, that really like encapsulates like that gritty, scrappy mindset, is being able to just like, I'm going to get this done again at all costs, no matter what it is, whether it's going out and running some hill repeats so you can win that race or, sweeping the floor so when somebody comes in to look at your product, they're going to buy it.
Yeah.
And it's not dingy and dirty, whatever it is, like just freaking doing it and at whatever costs. And like, if you don't have a broom, make a freaking broom. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like and it's just kind of switching that mindset from, again, that must be nice, or I wish I had that tool because I would be better, to what do I have that can get the job done? Because 9 times out of 10, in my opinion, I feel like those types of applications of saying, not having the right tool for the job, like you almost can do, like it almost has more soul to me, because you persevered and you made it happen. And like, I love hearing the stories of like people who have made it happen when they didn't have anything. Everything was against them and they still made it happen. Like I think about like Oscar Blues a lot because like obviously I spent a number of years there, and like even when I worked there during the Hotbox era, like how like pieced together the brew house was, and like they're top 10 largest brewery in the world, craft brewery in the world, and they literally had duct tape and zip ties holding shit together and they were making it happen, and like you walk into some of these smaller breweries and like they have like, these multi-million-dollar freaking brew houses and everything's immaculate and perfect. And like, not to say that doesn't hold a lot of value too, but Oscar Blues was just making it happen. And was a core value of theirs from the beginning. Let's just do it. And I think that is a really cool thing to, keep in mind all the time is it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to get done.
And I think it's cool whenever you can like, after you achieve your goal and look back and you're like, dang, I didn't have this, and this, and that still happened. And you can like, you get a good feeling out of it. So.
And then when you are able to have the things that you thought were nice and then being able to say, okay, cool, now I have the right tool. How much better can I make it? Yeah. Right. That's like, I've seen that over the last couple of years for us, like being able to have the right things to get the job done. I'm like, it's a game changer. We earned it and it feels great. And like, again, being in that scrappy mindset and like staying there forever, like it makes you so much more efficient, especially when you have the right tools or the right people in place. And if you're bringing employees in or investors or whoever, and like if they're in that same mindset as you, like you can accomplish some pretty cool shit. Yeah. So yeah, with that being said, being scrappy really is a mindset and a choice, and you can choose to embrace the scrappy attitude and push through adversity, or you can choose to give up and surrender to weakness. And I think we know which one we'd all like to do. So don't surrender to the weakness. Push through.
Keep
Be
going.
scrappy. Yeah, make it freaking happen. The key is to remember that you cannot change the past, the inevitable, or the actions of others, but you can control your attitude. And when faced with adversity, remember that quitting is the easy way out. And we don't take the easy way out. We like hard stuff here. We appreciate each and every one of you for being here. These episodes have been so much fun for us to make. And if you've missed our last few guest episodes, go back and check those out. They have been really good. The last guest episode that we just put out with Chase Hawk is absolutely incredible. We talked about mental health and so many other important things. So like I said, if you missed that one, go check it out. And if you're enjoying these episodes on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, be sure to follow us on the app so that you're notified every time a new episode drops every Friday. Leave us a 5-star review. And if you're watching these on YouTube, let us know how you're embracing being scrappy in your own life. Then hit the like and subscribe button. This greatly helps us continue to make this project happen and continues to allow us to make them even better. So yeah, thank you for being here, and we'll catch you on the next one. Keep being scared of normal. We're out.